I was born without arms. Emma fell in love with me, and then ran away. After the accident, she couldn't walk anymore, and I came back. Instead of revenge, I chose love. My name's Jack Turner, and I was born without arms. Not because of an accident or some dramatic event, just a twist of fate in a quiet hospital room in rural Iowa, the kind of place where the wind carries secrets and neighbors carry casseroles. My parents cried the day I was born. Not because they were sad, but because they didn't know what the hell to do. My dad was a fourth-generation farmer. My mom taught third grade. They were the kind of people who believed in hard work, duct tape, and prayer, so they got to work raising me like I wasn't missing a damn thing. By the time I was 5, I was picking tomatoes with my toes. At 7, I could ride a bike better than most boys in my class, gripping the handlebars with my knees, balancing like a circus act. Kids would stare. Some teachers didn't know what to do with me. But I was stubborn. I didn't want pity. I wanted to belong. Fast forward 20 years. I could patch a leaking pipe with my feet, run the combine during harvest season, and fix a fence using my chin and toes. But the part that still got me, every time, was love. People assumed I'd be alone. They didn't say it out loud, but I could see it in their eyes, like my body disqualified me from romance. Then came Emma. She worked on the ferry I took every week into town. I'd roll up with my bike, barefoot as always, balancing a sack of produce strapped across my back. She had wild, ginger curls pulled into a messy ponytail, freckles like sun-kisses scattered across her nose, and a voice that dripped sarcasm like honey over barbed wire. First time we met, she raised an eyebrow and said, "You handle life better with your feet than most people do with 2 hands." I grinned, surprised, because she said it like a compliment, not an observation. We got to talking. Then laughing. Then teasing each other like we'd known each other since childhood. Weeks passed. Ferry rides became something I looked forward to. We'd sit on the back deck after her shift, sipping coffee, watching the river bend and twist like it had secrets to hide. One rainy Tuesday, she kissed me. Just leaned over, lips soft and certain. I didn't even see it coming. She pulled back, laughing nervously, and said, "You make it really hard not to fall for you." That was it. I was all in. Head first. Heart wide open. For the first time, I let myself believe someone could love me exactly as I was. No arms, no problem. She didn't flinch when I touched her cheek with my toes. She didn't wince when people stared. She just smiled, cracked a joke, and reached for my calloused foot like it was the most natural thing in the world. But I should have known. Fairy tales never survive the light of day. One morning, she was gone. No note. No call. Just silence. Her apartment was empty. Her ferry shifts cancelled. I waited. Checked hospitals, called mutual friends, even asked around at the co-op. Nothing. I thought maybe she died. Turns out, something else had. Not her body. Her courage. I didn't sleep for weeks after she vanished. Couldn't eat much either. Not because I was heartbroken, that word felt too polite. I was wrecked. There's a particular kind of silence that only shows up after someone leaves without saying goodbye. It's not the absence of noise. It's a buzzing, gnawing kind of stillness, like the world is holding its breath and you're the only one who can't exhale. Emma had slipped through my fingers without a single word, and I spiraled. At first, I told myself there had to be a reason. Maybe a family emergency. Maybe she was sick. Maybe I'd missed some subtle sign, some flicker of doubt in her eyes I'd mistaken for tiredness. But as days dragged into weeks and winter set in like a slow, creeping frost, I stopped making excuses for her. I started making armor. I convinced myself I'd been a fool. That she was like the others, people who admired me from afar but flinched when it got real. When I took off my shirt and the reality of my body stared them in the face. When I needed help buttoning my jeans or couldn't open a soda can. Maybe she got tired of being stared at in diners. Maybe she got scared of the future. Maybe she looked at my life and decided she didn't want the extra weight. And yeah, I hated her for it. Not the kind of hate that burns hot, the slow kind. The kind that settles in your bones and makes everything feel heavier. I went back to farming. Back to waking up before dawn and hauling feed with my feet. I still rode the ferry sometimes, even though I didn't need to. Part of me hoped I'd see her again. The other part prayed I never would. Then came the call. It was late. January. Snow stacked high enough to bury fences. I was barefoot in the living room, using my toes to flip through old mail when the landline rang. I don't answer numbers I don't recognize, but something, instinct maybe, made me pick up. A woman's voice. Soft. Nervous. Is this Jack Turner? Yes. There was a pause. Then, Emma was in an accident. I didn't breathe. She was hit by a car while crossing the street. Spinal injury. T12 down. She's paralyzed. I think I sat down, though I don't remember moving. My head felt like it was full of bees. My heart like it had slammed shut and reopened all at once. She asked us not to call anyone, the voice continued. But I thought you should know. She's at St. Agnes in Des Moines. I thanked her. Hung up. Stared at the receiver in my toes for a full minute before I moved. I left before dawn. Didn't tell anyone. Just threw on my coat, grabbed my wallet with my teeth, and headed for the truck. My neighbor Sam had modified the wheel so I could drive using foot pedals and a shoulder rig. It took me 4 hours in a snowstorm to get there. When I walked into her hospital room, she wouldn't even look at me. Her hair was shorter. Her cheeks thinner. She was curled up in the hospital bed like she was trying to disappear. Her legs were covered in a thin blanket, motionless. I swallowed the lump in my throat. You didn't sign up for this, she whispered, her eyes fixed on the wall. I didn't move. Neither did you. She blinked. Looked at me then, really looked. And just like that, the dam broke. She started to cry. Big, shaking sobs that echoed in the sterile hospital silence. I moved closer, used my foot to press the nurse call button, then pressed my toes gently against her arm. We didn't speak for a long time. Just sat there, two broken bodies in a room full of buzzing machines and beeping lights. The next morning, I moved in. Not officially. Not yet. I slept in the chair beside her bed. Helped her brush her teeth with a toothbrush taped to her finger. Helped her eat. Talk. Laugh, eventually. She tried to push me away at first. Told me I had better things to do. That I didn't owe her anything. I said, Emma, you left me when I needed you most. And I'm still here. So maybe stop telling me what I should feel. We built a system. I cooked meals at the hospital kitchenette using my feet. She read books aloud to me in the evenings. I rubbed her legs even though she couldn't feel them, just to remind her they were still part of her. We watched bad soap operas and made fun of the acting. We remembered who we used to be. And somewhere in the quiet of that sterile hospital wing, we became something again. Not perfect. Not healed. But real. The day we left the hospital, the sky was the kind of blue that feels like it doesn't belong to this world, high, endless, holy. Emma hated it. It's too bright, she muttered as I wheeled her to the truck, her face hidden beneath sunglasses the size of satellites. I knew what she meant. That kind of brightness has a way of making you feel exposed, like the world might see too much if you stand still too long. I'd spent weeks prepping my place. Built a ramp with my neighbor. Cleared space between furniture. Lowered kitchen counters. It still wasn't perfect, nothing ever is when your hands are your feet and your girl can't walk, but it was ours. That first week back, we didn't touch much. Not out of fear, but out of fatigue. Every moment felt loaded, like we were guests in a life we hadn't earned yet. I cooked. She learned to manage the basics again. I'd hold the frying pan steady with one foot and stir with the other. Emma would use her chin to nudge buttons on the microwave. The silence between us wasn't hostile, just unfamiliar. Like we were translating a language we both used to speak fluently. But slowly, we made a rhythm. She'd wake up first. I'd carry her into the backyard in the mornings, toes gripping her chair, nudging the brake with my heel, and she'd sip coffee while I checked the tomatoes. She started sketching again, balancing a pad on her knees. One morning she drew me crouched in the garden, my feet dirt-streaked, the sunlight bouncing off my back. She called it rooted. I didn't cry, but something inside me did. Nights were hardest. The pain in her legs, phantom pain, cruel and senseless, kept her awake. I'd lie beside her, brush her forehead with my foot, whisper the names of every star I could remember. Sometimes she'd laugh. Sometimes she'd scream. Sometimes I'd carry her to the porch just so she could scream at the sky. And slowly, something more tender grew between us. Not just love, but a kind of sacred defiance. We were building a life in the ruins of what almost wasn't. One evening, she asked me if I'd ever hated her. I didn't pretend. Yes, I said. But I never stopped loving you. Even when I wanted to. She nodded. Bit her lip. Do you think people like us can be whole? I looked at her, freckled, fierce, fragile, and said, we're not missing parts. The world just hasn't learned to see us right. She cried then. Not the kind of cry that breaks you, but the kind that frees you. We kissed. Clumsy. Careful. Perfect. And in that kiss, I knew, we hadn't gone back to where we were. We'd gone forward to something better. It started as a joke. We were sitting on the porch, a thunderstorm cooling off the heat of a long July day. Emma had her sketchbook out, drawing a field mouse she'd seen earlier, and I was peeling peaches with a knife wedged between my toes and the edge of the railing. The scent of rain mixed with ripe fruit, and everything felt calm in a way that still surprised us. Imagine a kid growing up in this chaos, Emma said, smirking as she shaded in the tiny mouse's ear. Barefoot dad fixing pipes with his toes, mom doing wheelies in the driveway. I laughed, wiping peach juice on my shorts. Yeah, they'd be the weirdest kid in Iowa. But maybe the happiest, she said, softer this time. We didn't talk about it again for days, but the idea stuck. It followed us through cornfields and grocery store aisles and sleepless nights. It showed up in the way Emma lingered near the children's section at the library. In the way I started noticing car seats at garage sales. The truth is, we had no business thinking about parenting. Two people with broken bodies and complicated pasts. What could we offer a child? Everything. That was the answer we kept coming back to. Not because we were perfect. Not because we had money or flawless health or anything resembling a normal life. But because we knew what it meant to feel unwanted. We knew what it meant to be stared at, pitted, dismissed. And maybe, just maybe, we could offer something different. Love that saw beneath the surface. We started the adoption process in September. The woman at the agency was kind but hesitant. I saw it in her eyes, the flicker of doubt. Are you sure you're up for this? She asked gently. I looked at Emma. She was sitting in her wheelchair beside me, chin high, eyes steady. We were up for surviving, I said. This is the easy part. The paperwork felt endless. Home visits. Medical evaluations. Psychological screenings. Emma's paralysis sparked concern. My lack of arms sparked more. We were told repeatedly how unlikely our application was. But we kept showing up. Kept telling our story. And eventually, someone believed us. Her name was Lily. 2 years old. Tiny. Fragile. Abandoned at birth. Big brown eyes like melted chocolate and a silence so deep it hurt to hear. We met her at a foster home 2 hours away. Emma was trembling the whole drive. I was trying to act calm but nearly stalled at every stoplight. When they brought her into the room, she didn't run to us. She didn't smile. She just stared, this long, heavy gaze that felt like she was seeing straight through our skin. I crouched down, balancing on one foot, and reached toward her with the other, wiggled my toes like I was waving. She blinked. Then did the same thing. With her hand. Emma laughed. A sharp, sudden sound that broke all the tension. She gets us. We visited her for 3 weeks. Little by little, Lily opened up. She didn't speak much, but she started drawing with Emma, stacking blocks with me, curling into our laps like she belonged there all along. The day they told us she was ours, Emma cried into my shoulder for so long I lost feeling in my leg. Bringing Lily home felt like the second beginning of our life. Everything changed. Routines. Sleep. Sanity. But also, meaning. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were shaping someone else's world. I learned to hold her bottle between my toes. Changed diapers using a combination of knees, feet, and stubborn willpower. Emma sang lullabies from her chair, rolling back and forth beside Lily's crib, her voice filling the room like a safety net. We weren't perfect parents. But we were present. We showed up. Every day. For every scraped knee and every night terror and every quiet, sacred moment of connection. One night, maybe 6 months in, Lily climbed onto my lap while I was sitting on the porch and said, "You and Mama? You're my heroes." I couldn't speak. Emma wheeled over, kissed the top of Lily's head, and whispered, "You saved us too, baby girl." And she had. She was the heartbeat that stitched our broken pieces together. We never planned to become inspirational. Honestly, that word always made my skin crawl a little. People would see me lifting a bag of feed with my toes or Emma navigating a narrow grocery aisle in her chair and say things like, "You're such an inspiration." And I'd smile politely, but inside, I wanted to ask, for what? For existing? For managing the life I was given? But Lily changed that. Not directly. She never told us to go public or ask for a platform. She just lived. Freely. Loudly. Fully. She started talking more. Singing off-key songs from cartoons. Introducing us at the playground like, "That's my mom, she's fast in her wheels, and that's my dad, he's the strongest feet man in the world." One day, we were at a park when another parent, a woman with a camera slung around her neck, approached us. She'd watched me tie Lily's shoelaces with my toes while Emma tossed snacks from her lap like a baseball pitcher. She didn't stare. She didn't whisper. She just asked, "Have you ever thought about sharing your story?" I shrugged. Not much to tell. She tilted her head. No arms. No legs that work. A beautiful child. And laughter that can be heard across the park. I think there's everything to tell. She was a local journalist. Wrote a piece that ran in the Sunday edition, "The Family That Rebuilt Love from the Ground Up." We thought it would fade quietly. It didn't. By Tuesday, our inbox was flooded. Teachers asking us to speak to their classes. Pastors inviting us to Sunday services. People writing, "My daughter was just diagnosed," or, "My husband left me when I got sick, thank you for showing me I'm still worth loving." Emma was hesitant. Public life had never been her thing. The last time strangers looked too long, it was because they didn't know what to do with her chair. But now, it felt different. "We could give people something real," she said one night, after Lily had gone to bed. Not pity. Not perfection. Just truth. So we said yes. Our first talk was at a local high school gym. I rolled out in my modified chair, toes gripping cue cards, while Emma wheeled beside me, holding Lily's tiny hand. My voice cracked halfway through. Emma filled in the blanks. Lily fell asleep under a folding chair before we finished. We told the raw stuff. The parts people don't usually say out loud. How Emma used to stare at her useless legs and whisper curses under her breath. How I spent years resenting every limb I didn't have. How we both had days where love felt like a distant echo instead of a steady flame. And how, despite all of it, we chose each other anyway. Afterward, a teenage girl came up, red-eyed and shaking. She said, "I have a birthmark across half my face. I used to wish I was invisible. But you too, you made me feel like maybe different doesn't mean broken." Emma cried the whole way home. That was the beginning. We didn't become famous. We didn't want to. But we did become visible. And for people like us, visibility is its own kind of revolution. You'd think that being seen would feel like a gift. And at first, it did. After every talk, someone would approach us, their eyes full of tears or gratitude or a kind of startled relief, like we'd cracked something open in them they didn't even know was locked. But there's a weight to being looked at like you're some walking, talking miracle. Like every smile is supposed to prove something. Like every fight you have behind closed doors now echoes in rooms full of strangers. The pressure started small. I noticed it when Emma would take longer to get dressed before events, trying to hide the catheter bag she used sometimes when her body didn't cooperate. Or when I caught myself forcing smiles on days when my back ached from using my feet too much. I didn't want to let people down. I didn't want them to see the days when loving each other felt like a job instead of a joy. We were exhausted, but we kept saying yes. Because saying no felt selfish. Because people said we gave them hope. But slowly, we gave less of that to each other. It came to a head one night in a motel in Oklahoma. We'd been traveling for 3 weeks straight, school talks, church meetups, adoption seminars. Lily had a fever. Emma was sleep-deprived. I was sore, my left foot swollen from overuse. We were both running on fumes. Emma snapped at me over something small, a forgotten charger or maybe the wrong kind of juice. I can't even remember. I fired back. She wheeled away. I followed her with my feet slapping the cold tile, shouting something about how I wasn't her caretaker. She turned, eyes blazing, and shouted, "And I'm not your project, Jack." The words hit like a brick to the chest. We both froze. Silence. Lily's cough broke it from the other room, soft and pitiful. Emma covered her mouth with her hand and whispered, "I didn't mean that." But she had. And I'd meant mine too. We didn't sleep much that night. Sat on opposite ends of the bed, whispering apologies into the dark, hands not quite touching, hearts pulled tight like wire. The next morning, we cancelled the rest of the tour. We went home. We needed to remember what it felt like to just be, without an audience, without a script. To remember that our love wasn't a brand or a movement or a story that needed to impress anyone. It was a quiet thing, built in backyards and sleepless nights and whispered forgiveness. For weeks, we didn't talk about going back on the road. Instead, we planted new tomatoes. Painted the shed. Took Lily to the county fair and lost ourselves in cotton candy and laughter and pig races. Emma started painting again. I built her an easel that sat lower, easy to reach from her chair. And slowly, the tension melted. We remembered that before the spotlight, before the applause, there was just us, two flawed people trying to make a life out of the pieces we had. One night, after Lily was asleep and the fireflies blinked like Morse code across the porch, Emma looked at me and said, "If we never speak publicly again, would that be okay with you?" I nodded. "You're my story. That's enough." But life had one last twist for us. A letter arrived in the mail. An invitation. Something so unexpected, it made Emma drop her mug. And what it asked of us would change everything, again. The envelope was cream-colored, thick, formal. One of those you feel before you read, weighty, self-important, the kind usually reserved for weddings or court summons. Emma picked it up off the porch and tilted her head. It's addressed to all three of us. Inside was a letter from a university in Colorado. A professor who'd seen one of our old talks online, one we didn't even know had been recorded. He ran a series on unconventional families and resilience. He wanted to fly us out, all expenses paid, to speak at a symposium. Just one event. No media. No press. Just stories. Real ones. Emma looked at me across the dinner table that night, Lily between us licking applesauce off her fingers. We said we were done, she said softly. I nodded. We did. But this feels different. Smaller. Softer. It did. And more than that, it felt earned. Not like a spotlight, but like a candle in a quiet room, held out with care. So we said yes. 3 weeks later, we rolled into a wood-paneled lecture hall with old windows and soft seats that creaked when you leaned back. There were maybe 30 people there. Students. Therapists. A few parents. One little girl in the back row with leg braces and a sketch pad. We told our story again, but not the polished, practiced version. The raw one. We told them about the motel fight in Oklahoma. About the hospital room where we didn't know if we were still in love. About Lily, and how her silence became our healing. We told them we still had bad days. Still got stared at. Still sometimes wished we were different, even though we'd stopped believing that was wrong. When we finished, there was no applause. Just stillness. Then the little girl in the back row stood up. She didn't speak. She just walked, slowly, carefully, down the aisle, and handed Emma her drawing. It was us. 3 stick figures. One in a wheelchair. One barefoot. One small, with pigtails and a crown. Above us, written in shaky crayon, were the words, "Different is beautiful." Emma didn't cry. Not then. She just smiled, squeezed my toes under the table, and mouthed, "This is why." That night in the hotel room, Lily fell asleep curled against Emma's side, her tiny arm draped across her mom's chest like an anchor. And I watched them. My girls. My wife, who'd once vanished into silence because the world told her to be afraid of bodies like mine. My daughter, who grew like a wildflower from all the cracks we thought might destroy us. Me, the man born without arms, who used to think love was a door I'd never be allowed to open. We were none of the things the world said we had to be. But we were real. And we were enough. Now, we still speak sometimes, not in stadiums or on stages, but in church basements and small-town libraries. We show up with Lily's crayon drawings and a slideshow Emma built on her laptop with one good hand and a lot of coffee. We talk about fear. About shame. About building systems instead of walls. About how some people look at difference and see weakness, but love sees opportunity. Lily's 7 now. She tells people, "My dad hugs with his feet, and my mom gives the best wheelchair rides in the world." The other day, she asked if she could tell our story someday, too. I smiled and said, "It's yours already." And when people ask me now if I ever wish things had been different, if I ever wanted arms or an easier road, I tell them this. Without this body, I never would have met Emma. Without her pain, we wouldn't have seen each other clearly. Without being broken, we never would have understood how to build something unbreakable. And without Lily, we wouldn't have had the map to come home again. So no. I don't wish I was different. Because this, all of this, started when the world thought we had nothing. And look at us now.